They called her Freddy before she even had a chance to say hello. At table 9, under the polished chandeliers of prime-cut steakhouse, a man in a navy suit laughed louder than necessary, holding his phone up like he was filming a comedy special. "Y'all, look! Freddy Krueger's serving us ribs tonight." The others at the table burst out laughing. One of them wheezed. Another muttered, "Bet she burned her resume, too." Their phones were already live. 47,000 people were watching the stream, laughing, sharing, commenting, and all of it was aimed at her. Tiana Moore didn't flinch. She didn't blink. She simply poured water into the man's glass, her scarred hands steady, her posture straight, as if the cruelty bouncing off the oak-paneled walls couldn't reach her at all. But that smile was not surrender. That was the smile of someone who had faced things much uglier than their jokes. She turned to walk away, heels clicking softly against the marble floor, when a voice behind her cut through the laughter, louder, meaner. "Hey, waitress, what happened to you? Meth lab explosion? Or did your boyfriend light you up?" The laughter froze this time. Even the waitress at the bar looked over. Tiana turned slowly, meeting the man's gaze with a calm so unnerving, he actually leaned back in his chair. And then she spoke. "Some scars come from hell, some from war. Yours? I imagine they come from insecurity." The room went quiet. Across the restaurant, near the window, a man stirred in his booth. Eric Daniels had been eating alone, halfway through his burger. A retired Navy vet, he was just passing through Charlotte on his way to Atlanta. But something about this woman, her silence, her control, her scars, and then he saw it. As she reached for the check, her sleeve shifted just enough to reveal the faint outline of a tattoo. A pattern he hadn't seen in years, but he'd never forgotten it. His heart skipped. "That's Task Force Viper." And in that moment, he knew. The waitress was not what she seemed, and these men, they had no idea who they were mocking. Not yet, but they would. Tiana Moore was 36 years old, 5 feet 8 inches tall, and calm like a sniper's breath before the shot. Most people only saw the surface, a black woman in a waitress uniform, polite but distant. Her smile never quite reached her eyes. Her hands, steady. Her words, measured. To the average customer, she was just there, efficient, invisible, replaceable. But Tiana had spent the last 2 years working tables at Prime Cut Steakhouse, and every single shift, she listened more than she spoke. She didn't share stories, didn't post selfies, didn't join the others in the kitchen gossip. She just served, observed, and went home. Every night, she walked back to a modest 2-bedroom apartment above a tire shop on Mint Street. No pets, no visitors, no TV blaring through the walls. Just a mattress on the floor, one punching bag, a bookshelf full of military history, and a shoebox filled with folded letters that still smelled like sand and gunpowder. She used to be Sergeant First Class Tiana Moore, U.S. Army combat medic, Task Force Viper, 3 tours in Afghanistan, 12 confirmed evacuations under fire, 2 bullet wounds, 1 explosion that burned 38% of her left arm and shoulder. She never talked about that day, the day a convoy was hit and she pulled 6 wounded soldiers out of a burning Humvee with her bare hands through heat, smoke, and shrapnel. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She just moved, like her body was built for chaos. But war ends, and the real battle often begins at home. Civilian life? It didn't come with orders, it came with interviews that ended when they saw the scars. With men who stared at her like a curiosity or a fetish. with HR reps who smiled too wide and said, "You're overqualified. Maybe something customer-facing would suit you better?" So she took the job. Apron, tray, smile, and silence. Because silence had become her weapon. What the arrogant tech bros at Table 9 didn't realize was that every week they came in drunk off startup funding and spilled secrets louder than their whiskey glasses. Every time they mocked her, they revealed a little more about their business, their lawsuits, their NDA violations. And Tiana? She cataloged it all. In her head, on her backup phone, on the body cam clipped to the inside of her apron, disguised as a pen. 6 months. Every insult, every admission, every name. She didn't need revenge. She needed proof. And now, she had enough. Back at the restaurant, Eric Daniels couldn't take his eyes off her. That tattoo, the faded ink on her forearm, just below the scar tissue. It wasn't just a symbol, it was a unit brand, a family crest of those who had walked through hell together. He hadn't seen that tattoo in over a decade, but it was burned into his memory. Just like the voice on the other side of that satellite radio call from 2009. The one who calmly said, "We've got 3 wounded, 1 critical, extraction in 5. He whispered to himself, "Sergeant Moore." You made it home. But they don't even realize who's standing right in front of them. But they would, because the storm she'd been building was about to break wide open. She's just a burned-out waitress. "Hey, Freddy," Derek Langston called out again, lifting his glass. "You ever think about wearing gloves? Kinda hard to eat medium rare when it's served by medium well." The whole table erupted, phones up, laughter echoing. Even a few customers nearby chuckled under their breath, unsure whether to be amused or ashamed. Tiana approached, slow and silent, placing a plate of tomahawk ribeye down in front of Brett, Derek's right-hand man, the one who always laughed the loudest, but never looked her in the eye. "Anything else I can get you, gentlemen?" she asked, voice smooth as silk. Derek leaned forward, elbows on the table, smile like a man holding a loaded weapon. "Yeah," he said. "An answer." She paused. He pointed to her arm where the burn scars crept out just below her sleeve. "What happened, huh? What's the story? Crack house fire? Or maybe a jealous ex?" Brett chimed in, grinning. "Could be both. You know how wild Charlotte gets." Eric, still watching from his booth, gripped his fork tighter. But Tiana, she didn't blink. She simply tilted her head and smiled, a smile that made Derek's confidence falter just for a second. "I'm afraid it's not that exciting," she said. "Just hard work." Derek barked a laugh. "Work? What kind of work melts your skin off? You run a meth lab on the side?" More laughter. A few guests had started filming. Not the table, her. Their curiosity had shifted. There was something unnerving about how composed she was. Derek wasn't done. "Nah, I bet she used to strip. One of those fire shows, you know?" He turned to his phone. "We should ask TikTok. Yo, say hi to my followers, sweetheart. Show them the Freddy 5-star experience." He held the camera up to her face. And that was the moment. Tiana leaned in slowly, looking right into the lens. Her voice dropped. "You're streaming this?" Derek smirked. "Yeah. Smile for the fans." She smiled, not for his audience, but for herself. "Good," she whispered, "because the last time I was filmed, I was receiving a Bronze Star from General Dawson for pulling 3 soldiers out of a burning Humvee in Kandahar. No live stream that day, just blood, smoke, and the sound of people screaming. The air shifted. Someone at the bar coughed. Even Brett's laugh cut off mid-chuckle. Derek lowered his phone just slightly. "Wait, what?" Tiana stood tall now, her shoulders square. No more tray. No more polite smile. "You think because I wear an apron you know who I am. But here's the thing, Mr. Langston. The things you mock are the same things that keep you safe. You sit here week after week, drunk off privilege, thinking scars make someone less." She raised her sleeve slowly, revealing the ink beneath the scar tissue. "This," she said, "this is Task Force Viper. And in case you're too ignorant to recognize it, ask someone who's actually served." She turned slightly, locking eyes with Eric. He nodded, and just like that, Derek's smirk vanished. One woman at a nearby table stood up and began clapping. Then another, then the bar, then the whole restaurant. But Tiana wasn't done. She leaned in one last time, just loud enough for the camera to catch. "Careful who you live stream, Mr. Langston. Some people don't need to go viral. They just need to go silent until it's too late for you to stop what they've started." She never raised her voice, but she never had to. Derek Langston didn't know it yet, but the moment Tiana raised her sleeve, the game was already over. He just hadn't realized he was the one being played. As the applause rippled through the restaurant and phones began recording from every angle, Tiana stepped back, tucked her pen-shaped device into her apron, and calmly returned to the service counter, like nothing had happened. But something had. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was seismic. Derek tried to regain his footing with a joke. Okay, we get it. You're some war hero. Still doesn't change the fact that you work here, does it?" But the energy in the room had shifted. Nobody laughed this time. Even Brett stared into his glass, suddenly more interested in the melting ice than his boss's defense. Tiana didn't answer. She didn't need to. Eric Daniels rose from his booth and followed her toward the back, where she refilled water pitchers like it was any ordinary shift. He leaned in quietly. "I knew it. You were with Viper. Kabul, 2010? She nodded. "Southern sector. We evacuated a school under mortar fire. You were airlift support?" Eric grinned. "Second bird in. We never knew who got those kids out. They just called you the Ghost." Tiana gave a rare smile. "Ghosts don't brag. We record." She pulled a small pouch from beneath the counter and slid it toward him. Inside, a backup drive. Audio, video, emails. For 6 months, I've been collecting everything. From Derek, from his clients, even from his little office talks about streamlining diversity. Eric's brow furrowed. "That's why you stayed quiet all this time?" "They talk more when they think you're nobody." She explained it all, the camera hidden in her pen, the voice recorder in her phone, the decoy phone she left in her apron in case anyone snooped, the contacts she made at the local EEOC chapter, the lawyer waiting for this exact moment, and the file she'd already sent to the Department of Labor. "I didn't just come back from war to be someone's punchline," she said. "I came back to make sure people like him stop getting away with it." Eric took a slow breath. "So what's next?" "Next," she said, "I let the public do what it does best. Spread truth faster than lies." At table 9, Derek was still filming, narrating a version of the event where he was the victim, spinning her military service as a PR move by the restaurant. Tiana tapped her phone twice. The live stream cut off. He looked down, confused. "What the hell? Why'd it stop?" A voice behind him, the restaurant manager, Clara, cleared her throat. "Because that camera is connected to our network, and I just turned it off." Clara looked at him coldly. "We've let you bully staff here for too long. You're banned from this restaurant, effective immediately." Derek's jaw dropped. "You can't do that. I know the owner." "She does too," Clara replied, "and she served under him." Derek stood up, blustering. But by now, customers were filming him, and someone whispered, "Isn't that the guy whose company got called out last year for racial firings?" Eric watched as Derek's face paled, not from guilt, but from recognition. Tiana walked past them, slow and calm, pouring a new glass of water for a family at table 5. Same routine, same smile. But now, the war had quietly begun. They thought she was a nobody until her files started talking. Derek Langston was fuming. His live stream had cut off. His table had gone cold. And now, the woman he'd just spent 10 minutes mocking was walking around like she owned the place. "She's bluffing," he hissed to Brett. "No one records stuff like that. She's just trying to scare us." But Brett wasn't so sure. Because across the restaurant, people weren't laughing anymore. They were watching, phones still up, some live, some recording. Tiana, meanwhile, was still moving like it was just another Tuesday lunch rush. She dropped a check at a corner booth, refolded a napkin, smiled at a baby, and then, like she'd planned it all along, she returned to Derek's table. "Mr. Langston," she said evenly, "you forgot your card on the counter." He grabbed it from her hand like a challenge. "You think you're smart? You think you can embarrass me and get away with it?" Tiana didn't blink. "Oh, I'm not trying to embarrass you. That would be messy. I'm just making sure the right people hear you. In your own words." He stiffened. "Excuse me?" She pulled out her phone, turned it to him, and hit play. "I don't care what color they are. If they don't fit the image, they're gone. Culture fit over compliance every time." It was his voice, crystal clear, date-stamped, GPS tagged, background, the restaurant's jazz music. Derek lunged forward to snatch the phone. But Eric Daniels was there in a flash, stepping between them like he'd never left the military. "I wouldn't touch her, son." Derek's eyes darted. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was evidence. And then, his phone rang. Unknown number. He declined it. It rang again. This time, Michael Thorne, CEO, Horizon Biotech, his largest client. He answered, trying to sound casual. "Hey, Mike, what's—" "Derek," the voice cut in sharply. "Is it true? Did you really say those things on camera? I just saw a clip that's spreading on LinkedIn and Twitter." No. It's taken out of context." "Don't bother," Michael snapped. "The board's furious. Our diversity team is in meltdown. We're suspending all consulting contracts, effective immediately." "Wait. Hold on." Click. Derek stared at his screen, pale as ash. Another call. His attorney, another, his wife, and another from a reporter. His hands trembled. "What did you do?" Tiana leaned in, voice like calm fire. "Nothing you didn't do to yourself. I just archived it for you. You'll regret this." "No," she said softly. "You will. But not because of me. Because for the first time, the whole world sees you without the filter you hide behind." At that moment, Clara, the manager, stepped out with a folded paper in her hand. "This is a formal notice. We've reported your behavior to the city's Labor Ethics Board, and this establishment reserves the right to release security footage Should media or law enforcement request it? Derek was no longer angry. He was unraveling. You don't understand who I am. I built companies. I sit on boards. Tiana cocked her head. Then maybe you should have acted like someone worth sitting next to. And then came the final blow. Eric turned to the surrounding customers. Ladies and gentlemen, I served with Sergeant First Class Tiana Moore. 3 tours. She patched bullet holes while under mortar fire. She didn't fold then, and she's not folding now. The restaurant erupted. Applause. Cheering. Someone started chanting her name. Derek tried to leave quietly, but the crowd followed him with their phones. Not yelling, not attacking, just recording. The way he had recorded her, a poetic reversal. Tiana didn't chase him. She didn't look back. Instead, she reached under the counter, pulled out a small manila envelope, and handed it to Eric. Everything's backed up here. Drive, documents, timestamps. I've already sent a copy to the Department of Labor and the Civil Rights Division. Eric held it carefully, like a war medal. You just dismantled a monster with nothing but patience and a phone. She looked at him. Number I just gave him the rope. He's the one who tied the knot. When the truth went viral, there was nowhere left to hide. By the time Derek Langston made it back to his office, the damage was already done. 3 clients had pulled out, 2 board members had resigned, and Langston Leaks was trending on X, Reddit, and LinkedIn. Clips from the restaurant, shaky vertical videos, had been shared over 1.2 million times in less than 12 hours. Journalists called it the most professional takedown ever served over steak. In one video, Tiana's calm voice echoed like a courtroom statement. Respect shouldn't be earned through uniforms or scars. It should be standard for every human being. It struck a nerve, because people weren't just watching to see a powerful man fall. They were watching to see how quietly he was dismantled by a woman no one had ever seen coming. At Prime Cut Steakhouse the next morning, a line stretched out the front door. Veterans, activists, reporters. Even politicians showed up shaking hands with Clara and asking for the seat where it happened. Someone placed a framed photo of Tiana in uniform on the wall near the entrance, beneath a handwritten sign. This table is reserved for the quiet ones who never stop fighting. Tiana didn't show up that morning. She didn't need to. She was at a Veterans Resource Center across town, already speaking with an employment discrimination lawyer. Eric stood beside her, arms folded, watching the room fill with people asking just one question. How can we help? Meanwhile, Derek's spiral continued. His wife filed for divorce the same week, citing irreparable public disgrace. His personal assistant leaked emails showing internal company messages about image cleansing and diversity theater. Investigators from the Department of Labor opened a formal probe. So did the Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs, because Horizon Biotech, one of Derek's clients, was a government supplier. And remember the envelope Tiana gave Eric? That went straight to a civil rights nonprofit. They issued a class action lawsuit within 10 days, supported by dozens of fired employees, all people of color, all silenced under Derek's leadership. Brett, the laughing sidekick, he lost his license as an HR compliance officer. Now, he's bagging groceries at a strip mall 20 minutes outside Charlotte, avoiding eye contact anytime someone whispers, "Isn't that the guy from the video?" Back at the restaurant, things had changed. Clara promoted Lila, the young waitress who had once urged Tiana to let the manager handle it. to assistant floor manager. She'd been inspired watching Tiana stand tall. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't throw a punch, she just let the facts speak louder than the insults, Lila told the local paper. Tiana's story made national news. CNN, MSNBC, even The Atlantic ran a cover story. The waitress who outranked them all. And yet, through it all, Tiana stayed grounded. When a TV anchor asked her what revenge felt like, she paused, then answered, "This wasn't revenge. Revenge is personal. This was justice, and justice is bigger than me." Then she smiled, the same quiet smile she wore when she poured water, the one Derek mistook for fear. He should have known better. She never wanted fame, just a world where dignity didn't need to be earned. 6 months later, the name Tiana Moore was no longer just whispered in veterans' circles or shared in restaurant stories. It was etched into legislation, quoted in TED talks, painted on murals across cities from Charlotte to Chicago. She had spoken before Congress, calmly, steadily, just like she always did, about discrimination in post-military employment. Her words were replayed millions of times. We served so you could speak freely. But some of us came home only to be silenced in our own communities. Respect shouldn't be tied to rank, medals, or trauma. It should be the starting point, not the reward. New workplace protection policies for veterans were passed in 3 states within the next quarter. A nonprofit she co-founded, Beyond the Uniform, helped over 200 veterans find jobs in industries that once shut their doors. But if you asked her about the fame, she'd wave it off. "I'm not a hero," she said in a local radio interview. "I'm just a woman who refused to be erased." She never returned to Prime Cut Steakhouse as an employee. But one evening she walked in quietly, not in uniform, not in apron, just jeans and a soft gray jacket. She sat at table 5, the one by the window, the same spot where Eric Daniels had once watched her stand her ground. Now, he sat across from her business partner and friend. Veterans from across the region had driven hours just to shake her hand. One young woman, a combat medic fresh from Fort Bragg, approached with tears in her eyes. "I almost gave up," she whispered, "until I saw your story." Tiana smiled, stood, and hugged her without hesitation. "Then make sure the next woman doesn't feel alone." Derek Langston. He was rarely seen in public anymore. Disgraced, divorced, bank account frozen, under investigation. The last anyone heard, he was working in a consulting firm that didn't have a website or clients. The same internet he once used to mock others now held his name as a cautionary tale. And no one clapped when he walked into a room. Back at the steakhouse, the framed photo of Tiana in uniform was still on the wall, beneath it, etched in brass. Sometimes the quietest ones carry the loudest truths. And for those watching her story today, here's what you take away. People may underestimate you, mock you, ignore your strength because it's not loud or flashy. But strength isn't always in the noise. Sometimes it's in the silence. In the way you keep showing up, keep listening, keep recording. And when the moment is right, you don't explode. You expose. Because real power doesn't demand attention. It earns it, patiently, precisely, and permanently. Have you ever judged someone too quickly only to later discover a story that completely changed your perspective? What would you have done if you were in Tiana's shoes that day? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to like, follow, and pass this story on.